Human cultures and civilizations have been profoundly shaped by the geography and climate of the regions in which they originated. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam were all born on the margins of the great deserts of Southwest Asia in the Middle East. The heat and dryness of the region determined lifestyles and occupations, structured demographics, and influenced language in its focus and imagery. The stony desert of Sinai, the barren desolation of the Negev, and the hilly, rocky Judean wilderness all play a part in the stories of Judaism and Christianity. Metaphors of shepherds, barrenness, unfailing streams, and living waters abound in both Jewish and Christian scriptures, and are the product of the lifestyle of the desert and the near desert. The huge hot sand deserts of Arabia, the Nafud in the north, and the Rub al-Khali, or empty quarter, in the south, shaped Arabian culture and thereby early Islam. Nomadic people in tents and camel caravans crossed the deserts and traded at the cities and villages built around assured sources of water. The Quran describes heaven in terms that would have mesmerized the nomadic people of the desert.
The early Muslims prayed right on, you can pray right on the desert sand. And we have to cleanse ourselves before we pray. And of course, in our society, we cleanse with water. But in the desert, you take the sand and you cleanse with that. So you can pray right on that sand. Right on God's earth, you can pray. And I think it's very important because there's a bonding between you and God through your contact with the earth. It's hard to explain. It's very different from praying on a carpet or sitting in a pew in a church somewhere. You know, it's that getting down to the earth from where you've come. I think is the whole essence of faith. I just feel that it gives you the strength you really need. It does what it's supposed to do.
I think having lived in Israel too, I began to understand history of salvation and salvation of geography. And in the sense there is a theology of geography. Because when you go to the land, the biblical lands, to the Holy Land, you begin to see themes that come out. For example, the desert. The three major world religions came through the desert. The Exodus experience for the Jewish people. Jesus spent 40 days in the desert before he began his public ministry. And Muhammad, the leader of Islam, also came through the desert experience. And so I think the geography teaches you themes that are very, very profound. Mountains were always places of revelation, whether it was the revelation of Sinai, when Moses goes up to Sinai, or the revelation when Jesus teaches the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount.
The landscape and the geography of the desert are both frightening and yet attractive. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons why they are usually the location of revelations of God. Because God is both awesome and draws us to himself, and yet God causes us to be fearful and to withdraw. And I think the wilderness is a perfect example of that. If you look at the interplay of water and rock and the sky and so on, it's powerfully attractive. And yet, without water, we would perish. We always were told whenever we went on a journey to bring 3 liters of water. We weren't allowed to go on the trip. and you had to keep drinking. You had to keep being aware that your body needs to be attended to. Keep shading your body. Look for the tree. Look for a place where you can get out of the sun.
The essence of monotheism, and I think to understand how monotheism emerged, and Judaism as the first monotheistic faith, emerged in a region where so much was dependent on certain seasons and rains and seasons, and so much of the fertility culture was based on idol worship. And along comes Abraham, who says, I don't need idols and I don't need fertility rites. So things that are so basic to us, to any human being, are very deeply rooted into the actual experience here in the land, not to mention that I walk the land of my ancestors here.
My biblical education has taught me that this holy land is the natural habitat for the people of Israel within God's ecology, and that it's only here that we can really live out, put into practice the teachings that we've been carrying with us since we got our identity cards at God's mountain in the Sinai desert. In the wilderness outside of this land, we were given our mandate and our assignment, what we should do, with Jerusalem as our destination, and at the heart of our destiny, who we are as Jews. And that's why I've come back after thousands of years of exile to join my biography with the history of my people, Israel. Now, since we came home, and there was another people already resident here, already for centuries, we've been brought into a situation where we have to think through very carefully what those sacred teachings really mean, and not twist them into some kind of chauvinistic distortion that puts our claims to this land above the Palestinians' valid historical claim to this land.
The Prophet Muhammad, upon whom be peace, was born in Mecca, and in his infancy stage, according to some reports, he lived in the desert. He had a nurse who was looking after him, and she took him to the desert, and he came back to Mecca. There is some speculation that this may have led to his spirituality, but I think that that would be simplifying the concept of spirituality in Islam, because spirituality is not something that is connected with the land, as we said earlier. Spirituality is connected with your personality.
There is a desert reality in our spirit where we can meet God, and this should include also Muslims, Jews, and Christians, individuals who yearn and thirst for God's presence, and we can learn a lot from so many Jewish religious rabbis and simple people who believe in God, as well as from Muslim believers for whom God is the master and teaches them the big reality that God can be revealed only on the face of the neighbor.
Historically and metaphorically, all three monotheistic religions are peoples of the desert. It was the desert and the rigorous discipline it imposed that shaped the cultures which gave birth to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. In the silence and the desolation of an austere land, these people heard the beckoning call of God, a call which summoned them, purified them, invited them to accept a relationship, and in doing so, transformed their lives. The desert was the crucible which forged the three monotheistic faiths.